Hello my loyal companions, welcome back to the channel and to another complete rogue guide. Today we're going to be having a look at Vi. As always, we're going to be going over her weapons, abilities and perks, then look at an upgrade priority system so you know exactly what to buy when you're in game, and finally give you some playstyle tips so you know how to play her a little bit more effectively. If you do go on to enjoy the video or learn something new, make sure you drop that like and subscribe to the channel. But for now, let's get into it. Vi is one of my favourite rogues and the absolute queen of zone control. Like some of the other defenders in the game, she's great at blocking off a certain area, but what's unique about Vi is that she does this through damaging the enemies and causing areas that enemies don't want to walk through because they'll get hurt. Whereas Trench will slow you, Vi will actually impact your health permanently within the game using her passive and her ability. Her passive is called Leeching Poison, and what this does is that when she reduces the maximum health of an enemy, she gains that life up to 25 back. And this works in conjunction with her main ability, which we kind of have to explain so you understand that passive. Her main ability is called Vile Poison, and what this does is she is equipped with 2 cluster poison pools that she can throw down. They split into 3 sections of poison, and enemies who walk through it take 2 damage per tick very quickly, and that reduces their maximum health. So if you stay in it for a few seconds and you get hit by 20 damage, then you'll actually reduce your maximum health from 100 to 80, and you will not be able to regenerate past 80. That 20 health then goes to Vi, so she then has 120 health cap max, which can regenerate. The maximum amount of health Vi can take using Leeching Poison is an additional 25, so she can go all the way up to 125 health. However, enemies can take infinite amount of reduced damage to minimize their health. So if an enemy stays in it basically the entire duration, they will just die naturally. But if they stay in it for just a really long time, you may be able to put them down to a maximum 20 health or 30 health. And this can only be brought back either by a Shark Stim Pack, can regain that health, or by activating Life Drain, which will give you that additional 50 health and will actually counteract some of the Vi poison. Also, this ability is great for holding off of the line of sight, peeking around corners, stopping people pushing down narrow corridors because they do not want to run through that poison and lose the maximum health, and give Vi extra health at the same time. Let's now go on to her weapons so we can have a little look at exactly what she does. Her first primary weapon is the Nightshade, which is an assault rifle but actually acts a little bit more like an SMG. It has a very fast fire rate, quite a lot of recoil, but that is being adjusted in this patch. And then also a body shot damage of 16, but that is also being adjusted in this patch to go up to 17, so it's going to act a little bit more like an AR going forward, but still it mainly excels in that SMG type scenario. As you upgrade this to tier 1, you'll increase the magazine size from 25 to 35, which is a really good change because of the nature of the weapon. At tier 2, you'll increase the hipfire accuracy and reduce the reticle bloom, and then at tier 3, you'll increase the damage range. And when you have all 3 upgrades on this weapon, it can be a little bit of a laser, even at some of those mid-ranges, but still is not a fantastic weapon and won't compete with a lot of the ARs and certainly not the DMRs currently. Her other primary weapon is the S12 Tactical Shotgun, and this is a shotgun I quite like. It's really good for hip fire, and it's actually one of the better range shotguns as well. Particularly if you aim down sight, you can do some decent damage at the kind of mid-range, and competitive enough to maybe finish off a kill if you've damaged them before or if they've run through your poison. As you upgrade this to tier 1, you increase the magazine size from 6 to 10. At tier 2, you increase the hip fire accuracy, and at tier 3, increase the damage range. Again, all 3 upgrades on this can make it a really good weapon and a bit more versatile at some of the longer ranges. In terms of which primary weapon I personally think is better, it sort of depends on the situation. I'll go into this a little bit more later, but there are 2 kind of options you can go, 2 different playstyles that I've seen through playing a lot of Vi. You can either go the Nightshade route, which is better for more versatile play on some of the long range maps you kind of need it. Or you can do what I personally use in some scenarios, not as much as now, but I did a lot before, is run the S12 Tactical and rely on the Executioner pistol for those longer ranges, because it really can do damage at long ranges, and having the shotgun for up close is really good. I'll go into a little bit more of that in the playstyle tips, but those are kind of your 2 options. I would recommend most people stick with the Nightshade, but if you're looking to switch it up, maybe try the shotgun route. A pistol is again the most common one. It's the Executioner pistol, a really good weapon just for switching around and using in different scenarios. It's good at hip fire, it's good up close, good at longer ranges, and is generally pretty consistent as a weapon. As you upgrade to tier 1, you increase the magazine size from 12 to 16, and then at tier 2, you increase the hip fire accuracy and reduce the recoil. The other secondary weapon is the Katana, which is a more versatile melee weapon within the game. As you upgrade to tier 1, you increase the throw damage to 125, and you increase the swing damage to 50 at tier 2. Vi's abilities and kit give her a lot of zone control potential, and this is just amplified with her gadgets as well. Her first gadget is the tear gas, which when you throw it down, it creates this cloud of gas that when enemies are in it, they are slowed, they lose their reticle, their vision is kind of blurred, and it's really disorientating for them to stand in. It makes it hard to shoot when you're within it, and it's generally a really big annoyance. This just adds to Vi's zone control, particularly if you throw the poison down, you can slow them down with the gas grenade in the poison, just to get them that extra bit of damage. As you upgrade this to tier 1, you increase the gas duration, and at tier 2, you're able to hold a second gas grenade, which is really good to have both of these for different scenarios. Then her other gadget is the incendiary grenade, again further damaging zone control that she has within her kit. This creates a lingering pool of fire, which damages enemies at 10 per tick. When you upgrade this to tier 1, you will increase the radius of the fire, and then at tier 2, you'll increase the fire duration. Getting a full upgrade of this is really good, and works really well in conjunction with that poison and that incendiary and the gas grenade. They all really help her at zone controlling and just putting out a lot of damage in a specified area. Going then onto Vi's perks, in the 4,000 category she has Evade and Cloaked, in 6,500 she has Tenacity and Helping Hands, and then in the 10,000 category she has Tracker Rounds and Replenish. Personally, there's only one perk here that stands out, and that is of course going to be Tenacity, a really good perk. Great for Vi, who has to get up close and personal due to the nature of her weapons and her poisons and her general kit. She has to be on that front line, she has to be a defender, so Tenacity is really good for her. Other than that, Replenish isn't that necessary. The reload time on the weapon is not that bad. It's okay if you're really feeling like you need to frag out, but that's not generally Vi's role. She's there to zone control and get the occasional pick, not necessarily run through the enemy team. Tracker rounds can be good due to this more supportive nature of her, and if you want to further that supportive role, you can also get Helping Hands for those quicker revives. She does fall into that slot quite nicely, but more than anything, she is utility focused, and we'll kind of get into that in the upgrade priority. Now going into how you should upgrade her, I'm going to give you the high priority, which are things you should buy, then go on to the interchangeables, which are things you also should buy, but you can kind of mess around with the order depending on the situation and your need. And then you have the low priority of situationals, which you never really need to get unless there's a very specific purpose as to why you might get it. As always, I put the rounds next to the items, so you know probably the round you're most likely to buy these on when you're in a demolition game. Going on to the most noticeables, in the first round you want to be picking up that incendiary grenade every single time. It's such a fantastic piece of equipment and works so well with Vi's kit. You then have 2 poisons, you have the incendiary grenade, so you have so much zone control at your potential from round 1, and just helps just put out even extra damage in those specified areas. Then at round 2 you want to be getting your primary weapon of choice, and then as you move to round 3 try and pick up Tenacity and the gas grenade. When you have that, that is kind of your core kit, and you can start adapting your play accordingly depending on what the situation requires. That's then when you get into the later rounds in the interchangeable, and what you can kind of do from here is you can buy the melee weapon if that is something you like. Personally, I think she's close enough range that you don't always need the melee weapon, but then again they are useful and they can clutch out, so if you're comfortable with it you can buy it here. After that though, I personally like going for the full weapon upgrade. Depending on the weapon, either weapon is fine to get the full weapon upgrade. I just like to have this because the weapons themselves aren't the strongest, particularly the Nightshade, so getting those full upgrades makes it a bit more of a beamer, makes me feel a bit more consistent with it. After that, I personally like to upgrade the utility. I like to get the double gas grenade first, so I have 2 of them and they last a little bit longer. Then I like to go for the incendiary upgrade because I think this offers a lot more damage to it and a lot more zone control, which is what Vi's all about. Once you've got those though, you can really mess around. I recommend Helping Hand as a pretty good perk, but as for Replenish and some of the other items, you don't necessarily need them, and Vi doesn't earn a lot of money because although she gets a lot of assists due to her poison, she isn't getting a lot of kills and downs herself because it is not really her role. She's there for the zone control, she's there to do some poke damage. Of course she can frag out if you're hitting deadly shots, but that's not mainly her job. Looking at what her job is though, we're going to go into some playstyle tips now so we can play Vi a little bit more effectively. So I want to start with one very important concept, and this is that Vi is a defender, but that does not limit her to the defense role, and I'll kind of explain to you why this is the case. So of course, Vi on defense is amazing. You throw down zone control, you stop them pushing a certain site, pushing certain angles, pushing certain choke points or flanks, and Vi is just phenomenal at this. She can really slow down the enemy team, which is exactly what you want from your defender role when you're on the defense side. But because of the nature of her damaging equipment, she can actually be used as a breach rogue in the right circumstances. If you're able to push onto a site fairly aggressively and throw Vi poison in different choke points that they might be holding or different peaks they might be holding to stop you getting onto the site, you flush them out immediately and then they can't re-enter through that. It's almost like going in, swapping over into the defending role when you're on attack. It's really effective just to go up there, breach, throw your poison down, throw your Molotov down, and push aggressively with Vi, as opposed to just sitting back on the defensive. You have to be really confident with Vi to do this though, very confident on your placements, very confident on enemy positions, and very confident with your gunplay, because our guns aren't fantastic. You may get outgunned as you try to approach, so you need to be using cover systems and using correct gunplay and poke damage to get the advantage, to then get into those positions to use your poison aggressively. I definitely think that when you play around with Vi enough and you've got her kind of nailed on defense, you should look to moving her into some attacking roles. Particular favorite of mine is High Castle to breach the B site. You can just run straight through that courtyard, hide behind the boxes, and throw your poison down, flushing them out of the different B site positions. Now though, we'll talk a little bit about her weapons and the two different playstyles I mentioned. You have the Nightshade route, which is there for your mid-ranged, poke at long range, and for those sort of short-range engagements. It's a very versatile weapon that can do a lot. It's just not fantastic at the role it's meant to do, but it will output some damage for you, just not as consistently as other weapons. It is a good weapon though, you should be using it, and I think for the majority of players you want to be sticking to the Nightshade. However, if you're looking to change it up and potentially like the shotguns, you could be using the S12 tactical and pistol route that I mentioned. Using this pistol to poke at long range, you're not going to get a lot of kills, but you are going to be able to output a lot of damage with it, and then having the shotgun at close range is really going to help you as enemies start to push through you. What you'll find is enemies do push through your poison a lot, and whilst the gun is not a one tap, if they take a little bit of poison damage, I mean like just a little bit, just like 2 or 3 ticks, then you are able to one-shot them with that shotgun at a headshot range. This really allows you to throw down your poison somewhere, hide behind a third person, wait for them to take a little bit of damage, and as they come through to you on reduced health, you can pop them with that shotgun and it turns into a one-shot. That's where the difficulty of Vi comes in, is being able to play around the fact that your weapons aren't amazing, but using your poison to get the advantage in the fights. This is personally why I like the S12 Tactical and Executioner route. I think it offers the most adaptability, but does require you to be very accurate with both shotguns, which I know people struggle with because you have to hip fire a lot, and the Executioner, which you have to be very accurate for at range. So you have to be able to bounce between those two different playstyles really easily, and a lot of players do struggle with that when they first get on Vi, which is why I recommend the Nightshade first, and then look to transition into something different if you're not quite feeling it. A big question Vi players have is, where should I throw my poison? And the answer is there's no correct way to use the poison. There's so much adaptability to the way you can use it. I said you can breach with it or you can play defensively, but mainly you want to be sticking around close areas that enemies will funnel through. If you throw it into the middle of the open, enemies can just walk around it, and you want to be making sure that you're allowing the bounce and the spread of the different 3 pools to block off as much surface area as possible so they can't push through that certain position. A lot of the times, if you're trying to flush somebody out of the position as well, this is a really good way to throw it behind the cover, so they have to move away from the cover, and maybe you can get a few pot shots on them, and if they're taking enough damage, you might even be able to kill them. But you can also use the Vi poison to cover for a revive. Similar to how you might use a smoke grenade, you can throw it down the angle that the enemy team may push to thirst to kill, and stop them getting through with that poison, and then you're able to pick up your teammate and then get back in the fight. But generally speaking, you're wanting to put these in close quarter combat areas where enemies have to walk through it to get to you or to get onto the site. This is the best way, just somewhere where they're not going to be able to avoid that poison, because you do want that 25 health. A few last things to note about Vi that are quite important is that if you throw your poison on a downed enemy, it will do damage to them, but will not reduce their maximum health and will not give you additional health. So do be careful with that. It's not going to help you to throw at a downed enemy unless you're just trying to thirst that kill, which then it's probably too slow for you to really try that. And then the last thing I want to mention is try not to waste your utility too much. A lot of teams will just wait out your utility. So either if you're trying to hold them off for as long as possible, slow play your utility, wait for the last one to run out before you apply the next one, and you can hold them off for like a good 30 seconds using two poison bars and an incendiary grenade. You can hold them off for a really long time if you play it right. But if you just throw all your poison out at the start with your gas grenades, with your Molotov, and you're not getting anything for it, you've wasted your entire kit as Vi. She's not that useful with just gunplay, so you do need to make sure you're using your utility at the right times. Don't overthrow, don't use it too much unless you're guaranteed to put the enemy under pressure and get a lot of damage done with it. Your poison does do so much damage, and if you can get a whole team with it and start chunking health, that is a permanent help you've done to your team. That health will transition throughout the rest of the game and give your team the advantage even if you die for it. If you can take 30 health off every single enemy but you die for it, worth it. honestly, because your team can clean up that 3v4 with their reduced health bars. Okay then guys, that takes us to the end of the video. If you did enjoy, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel. You can also come follow me on twitch.tv/RadtharGaming, see live gameplay commentaries, guides, Q&As, tournament scrims, and ranked gameplay. All the links you're gonna need are down in the description below. But for now guys, I hope you have a fantastic day, and remember, be loyal, be brave, be relentless, and I'll catch you in the next video.